can I just take this moment to thank each and every one of you amazing supporters. This channel has grown into an amazing community of story lovers. I could not have done it without you guys. If you haven't yet subscribed, then please be part of this journey and help us reach new heights. My ritual Friday unwinding always started the same, shedding corporate armor the moment those relentless heels clicked out of the lobby onto pavement, still radiating the day's oppressive heat. The commute crowd had thinned enough to nab a streetside cafe table. Soon, dry rosé and a few furious swipes on Tinder washed away another soul-draining week chasing the partner track. I told myself wanting more intimacy each weekend didn't undermine my fierce independence, if carefully compartmentalized. So long as dancing flames ignited no emotional wildfires breaching my future corner office's meticulously fortified barriers when Monday hit. Which explains my buzzed surprise actually connecting with Travis after months bantering the dating hamster wheel. Most matches chasing Friday feels fizzled quick once conversation shifted beyond surface charm, or they pushed for morning encore performances. But Travis, with his effortless wit, cool non-beer choice IPAs, and grip on early postmodern philosophy hiding behind boyish dimples didn't instantly trigger my disengagement tactics. Through the pleasant fog of a third glass, something akin to intrigue awoke. Had I finally attracted a true creative scholarly equal after years refining my demanding parameters? By drink 4 we had shifted venues, drawn into dissecting the influence of 1960s French anarchists on modern art over upscale pub fare. I swooned a bit hearing Travis debate moral nuances fueling unrestrained expression absent traditional order with impressive grasp, pausing thoughtfully as often to ask my interpretation of implications to cultural norms. Here was a beautiful mind stretched beyond the hedonistic weekend mating dance, a passionate explorer climbing conceptual summits, for revelation's thrill alone judgments be damned. Had the playfully absurdist universe finally rewarded my overachieving ambitions with a partner who could slake my unquenchable thirst for reinventing perspectives? My usual critiques measuring acceptable relationship cost-benefit ratios back at the penthouse somehow never formulated listening to Travis' dissertation on poetry as cathartic bourgeois rebellion. Date 2 only amplified intoxication, so I suggested indulging our bookshop wanderlust I usually saved for solitary Sundays. We dove into independent shop discourse for hours debating dueling philosophies on enlightened living before grabbing Ethiopian veggie platters and giggling over the absurd self-help section. Travis even patiently listened as I waxed poetic about my dream of abandoning unfulfilling executive ambitions to open a funky shop selling hipster literary accoutrements someday. A dangerously honest reveal I instantly regretted when met with his conflicted gaze at my glossy pumps. But instead of trite condescension, the pat judgment came gently, even optimistically. Perhaps I still could manifest those bohemian dreams, absent corporate pressures. Travis' encouragement seeped warmly around my barricaded spirit. Buttery afternoon light illuminated the understanding, sparkling those hazel eyes that my unpolished longings deserved nurturing, not censoring behind pragmatic walls. That heady vision left me reeling, more was that the 3 glasses of honey wine from earlier sweltering my cheeks. Regardless, an unfamiliar yet welcome calm lingered long after we finally parted ways that challenged my usual compartmentalizing habits once home from engaging encounters. Had embracing Travis so unguardedly in my off-duty moments done the impossible and opened some crack in my disciplined armor? The alarming prospect left me restless as I traced familiar creaks along the bedroom's restored floors I'd obsessively inspected when sealing the building's transaction last year. Perhaps sunrise meditation from my rooftop terrace, overlooking the financial district, would reset the delicate work-life balance I prided myself so stringently maintaining. But Date 3 rudely appended recent revelations, lulling me toward dismantling said boundaries. I had suggested visiting the Arboretum trails I habitually wandered, mapping next writing projects, eager for Travis' creative input exploring inspirational natural spaces. Yet the moment we entered at the side turtle fountain and navigated straight to the heart-shaped camellia gardens, I felt unease trickle down my spine, warring with poetic fancy at his romantic gesture. How I'd naturally Travis had channeled my preferred contemplative oasis without ever visiting together. When directly asked, he demurred behind charming excuses and suggested we continue along the perimeter path bordering the duck ponds. I hesitated briefly, suspicion furrowing my brow as we circled the exact shaded clearing where I perched for hours, scribbling nymph-inspired poetry last spring. But Travis diffused tension by initiating light debate about supplemented reality applications in writing. Still, the uncanny alignments festered quietly through lingering side glances until we finally exited at the lats and pastries I routinely grabbed before heading home. Certainty took hold that Travis had meticulously studied my arboretum patterns through unexplained tracking methods preceding our park date invitation. I let accusatory texts fly early the next week once courage overtook chilling unease. Travis initially deflected behind apologetic belittling of my female hysteria biases, but by afternoon his patronizing ... spilled the toxic truth. He fully admitted leveraging invasive software he easily downloaded, revealing my daily patterns through complete location history, harvested from mundane apps and accounts I never fathomed vigilantly safeguarding. Laughing emojis preceded his arrogant justification. With true connection so elusive in the digital age thanks to guarded personalities, how else might he genuinely surprise a promising date by astutely planning personalized outings? He assured the ends justified harmless scheming, so I should feel flattered at his exceptional efforts creating wonderful memories rather than overreacting. His brazen confession ignited blue flame fury that Travis felt entitled, invading not just my bodily autonomy for some matches fueled fling, but my trusted spaces and private contemplations, because his intellectual ego convinced him cunning maneuvers superseded ethical boundaries. I instantly visualized his entitled gaze rapaciously combing through my digital imprints for weeks preceding our meeting, compiling, categorizing, and curating my every activity into a twisted mental dossier, allowing him to convincingly pose as my behavioral psychic. Bitter bile rose as my thumbs tapped out venomous condemnation of his deceitful theft, excused through privilege and indifferent misogyny. I demanded immediate destruction of any remaining ghostly records, so carelessly constructed from a presumptive posture, he somehow held rights over an independent woman's existence. Travis quickly shifted to wounded indignation at my ungratefulness for his exceptional relationship dedication. Why condemn the lengths traveled for rewarding discovery of a potential soulmate, thanks to harmless technology leverage in an age leaving us starving for meaningful connection? He refused ending further contact given the callous insults to what he considered inspired romantic strategy. But as I blocked number after associated social media account in trembling rage, his unrepentant parting messages assured that while my trails may curve beyond his tracing reach the arboretum's gates where enchanted seeds were planted, he would continue nurturing their imagined fruition through preserved recreative mementos. Later, in the chilled dark of my Italian leather and chrome sanctuary, 20 stories above the ant farm streets, I swallowed disgusted fury at myself, allowing temporary weakened longings for unconventional chemistry to blind my usual bullish wariness against poisonous masculine tropes. I had ignored blaring sirens as Travis violated every perimeter granting access to my mental sanctums and physical refuges only privileged few might earn. Getting spruced up for that long-awaited Tinder date with a stone-cold Midwestern 10 amidst another bitter New England winter felt like prepping for first chair violin at Carnegie Hall. I hadn't obsessively shined shoes since prom night or even owned wingtip Oxfords. But convincing fellow divorced dads I held viable real estate worthy of their still perfect North Shore princess became life's driving obsession since Gina walked out. Maybe the extra attention to polished appearance verged desperation. But Brandon's Ivy pedigree demanded upping my game beyond the usual sports coat and dark jeans uniform ubiquitous amongst Boston's recently separated suburban male species seeking second chance validation. I wasn't scoring this caliber Hingham stunner sporting baggy chinos like the college frat days Gina used to rave over. Tonight marked reinvention. Sleek Windsor knot, crisp creases, and a splash of musky Burberry cologne that used to mesmerize women the second I entered happy hour 8 years and 20 extra pounds ago. Beyond surface prep, eagerness corrupted my usual cocky playbook that served so well in past single stints. Wit and charm sharpened from years dominating courtrooms now collected rust-surviving domesticity's soulless attrition. So many nights pleading closing arguments and soothing Gina's picky palate left confidence eroded about enthralling bar-top beauties barely out of law school who once hung on my every punchline. But damn if Brandon didn't read my youthful bravado in this widowed longshot after months tolerating me-up mixers full of clingy divorcees and cat moms. One sophisticated soiree proved I still brought the heat with chilly Ewing than the lights. Game on. Sadly, rust permeated deeper than I feared the second I arrived at Mario's pretentious North End snob factory and spied Brandon waving enthusiastically from a corner table, black lace collar and pearls gleaming under soft sconce light. Even her bright smile twinged melancholy, while I prayed the plunging neckline hinting plentitude would distract me long enough to fake fine dining poise. But the earnest sympathy shining in sherry eyes meeting mine affirmed that the overdressed aging gent before her seeking dignified escape from suburbia's uninspiring chaos bled more tragedy than prowess. Pity weighed heavier than lust or intrigue, seeing the Borelli's best merlot again bracing my nerves and loosening inhibitions just enough to numb defeat's familiar ache one more evening. Sincere inquiries opened dinner amicably, though acutely aware fine wine's unfortunate trick blunting conversational swordplay. Brandon recounted raising spirited teenagers and surviving cutthroat academic politics at a small New England women's college. Periodic polite laughter filled my awkward pauses, while sentimentality about cheering little Lee from sagging bleachers or Saturday trips to Home Depot for special daughter projects built Brandon's telltale pitying gaze. I knew staging virile bachelor revival overnight demanded restrained airing domestic shortcomings or midlife melancholia too soon. But emboldened by Brunello, an attractive confidence patient ear, I confess cracking over Gina's scorn, increasingly detached teens, and a soulless law practice bleeding passion until numbly signing divorce papers at Christmas, hoping a spark might reignite somewhere in lonely middle age. The floodgates opened fast once Brandon touched my hand, gently sharing her own reentry struggles, and asked pointedly what emotions I avoided most since separating. Have you cried? Journaled dark thoughts. Considered self-harm. Her questions bored like lasers, seeing too clearly pain laid bare over years slowly dying from neglect. Unsatisfied with my shaking head or muttered jokes about finding healthy coping down at the driving range, Brandon insisted stress levels required discussion. One glimpse at weary eyes matching my defeated gaze apparently convinced her to shepherd this damaged lamb through proper healing. Over tiramisu therapeutic probing turned ruthless, picking apart embarrassing intimacies like my reliance on secret sleep aids or abandoning couples counseling once fits of enraged shouting triggered migraines. I sat paralyzed in the surgeon's spotlight, spilling shameful truths about bad spirals and beer for breakfast when late alimony receipts forced selling my loyal hound Buckley to cover a mortgage check. Didn't you grasp that pitiful divorce people require gentle handling against bruised masculine pride, too raw enduring harsh fluorescent lights revealing our wreckage? The evening devolved into cringe-worthy confessional entirely wasted on some amateur therapist probing numb wounds rather than an alluring beauty soothing them through charming distraction. The waiter's intrusion dropping the check spared further emasculation. Brandon was already scheduling next week's deeper dive into codependency roots over her professional opinions on effective anger management when I abruptly excused myself to the restroom for some damage control, splashing cold water against blistering vulnerability. No conquest revival awaited downstairs, just compassionate dismissal from this magistrate, clearly convinced line item analysis of my remaining marketability required weeks under her microscope determining qualification for lukewarm friendship at best. I slipped out the side exit before Brandon tracked me down, as childish longing ached for the old oak-paneled den's familiar warmth. Hot tears escaped realizing Gina had permanently barred the only refuge shielding decent men from harsh indictments once home's comforting embrace faded. With no sanctuary left to restore strength between trials, worn-out warriors must endure standing exposed forevermore. Getting dolled up for a Sunday morning coffee clatch with Brandon. My latest swipe-right hopes spiraling the drain of deadened Tinder flings, hardly motivated sensual lingerie choices anymore. One too many courtesy second dates ended with limp pecs and vague plans soon ghosted proved my remaining 30-something marketability barely cleared the let's be friends exit ramp. with biological alarms blaring louder each month. Was lowering my bonding standards again really worth precious weekend morning prep better spent hunting Mr. Not-So-Bad options before that first wrinkle etched my virtues expired? But Brandon's Ivy MBA intrigued against the brain-dead brood infesting my network since returning home. Sure, he sported the standard finance fuckboy aesthetic, winding backstory explaining some vague app startup between humble brags about yoga retreats with internet-famous influencers and scrolling grins at the urinal. But during round one's post-workout smoothies, something about his nervous earnestness charmed me. Almost like he too sought genuine connection, yet feared revealing insecure vulnerability still raw after his 5-year LTR combusted. Was Brandon my sheepish wolf concealed in basic bro clothing? Worth one more latte to find out since he already witnessed my awkward jazz hands wave goodbye last time. Entering our favorite bustling cafe, I smiled seeing Brandon waving me over to the coveted corner love seat he had camped out saving. Ever the gentleman holding my chair and fetching an extra pastry while I settled in, his affectionate energy initially eased, lingering cynicism this reunion wasn't another dead end let's friend zone this farce. We eased back into our last chat about toxic hustle culture stunting Gen Z's coming of age when Brandon gently took my hand. Vulnerable eye contact instantly magnetized us closer across the love seat, hints of his woodsy cologne mixing deliciously with frothy cappuccino steam. Then the seat suddenly shifted as another body abruptly blocked the central moment, bursting my rosy bubble. Moving my head sideways, recognition dawned instantly. Mason, the infamously aloof ex who Brandon described as emotionally stunting him through years bipolar queries, whether Mason felt anywhere near the profoundly that Brandon did. We locked startled eyes for a beat as Brandon sputtered, attempting casual introductions. But Mason's icy sneer sliced through any pretense this ambush held innocent intentions. Too intimate history practically manifested between the uncomfortable trio jammed onto a love seat intended for couples, not awkward encounters with bitter exes. Mason clearly relished unraveling Brandon's smooth recovery facade he had described moving on from their turbulent relationship so healthily. Though declining my offer of chair retrieval with an inappropriately intimate hand suddenly stroking Brandon's shoulder, Mason's menacing focus trained on me as the obvious impediment to reclaiming primary real estate in Brandon's world. I shifted uncomfortably under accusatory inspection as their charged conversation revisited Brandon recently moving back downtown solo after having lived basically as husband and wife out west for most of his 20s. Not even the barista's intrusion offering my unfinished cappuccino to free an urgently needed table could interrupt Mason's rapt pillory. Declining my searching glance signaling needed escape, Brandon passively allowed vitriolic scrutiny on everything from why he drastically downsized living quarters without a roommate to whether ditching their shared Lexus SUV, and did shame surrounding his sensibly unremarkable app's profits the past few years. Never one to camouflage insecurity behind indiscreet wealth symbols, I still resented Mason's cruel delight exposing Brandon's nervous tics answering invasive inquiries about current income and ambitions. My date's earlier assuredness rapidly deteriorated beneath his intimidating ex-interrogation until a juvenile power dynamic emerged. Teenage lover seeking cool kid approval yet again despite nearly a decade passing since Mason apparently relished tormenting his esteem. The lengthy spectacle left me questioning my own judgment, not recognizing Brandon clearly remained tethered to Mason through unresolved trauma bonding. Had I fallen for another manipulating partner, fluent in weaponizing vulnerable insecurities when his polished veneer showed cracks? My sympathetic glance toward Brandon, now wilting under humiliation, went unseen. His watering puppy dog eyes trained helplessly on Mason, while clinging to any fortifying pats or compliments tossed his way between criticisms about losing his edge. I managed restrained eye contact with my bestie sipping macchiatos at the next table, whose bugged-out gave signal we were both behaving far too Minnesota nice, enduring this discomfort without confrontation. But neither of us could interpret Brandon's conflicted fawning for his antagonizer, holding us hostage. So we sat paralyzed observing the car crash and other principles moved to mitigate regardless of worsening wreckage. Only after Mason launched into warning me about Brandon's long-standing phone addiction did my date finally lift pleading eyes up from the scuffed linoleum. I held his uncertain gaze steadily, trying to channel maternal instincts nurturing his courage to set boundaries with judging bullies promising conditional affection. but interests were lit watching Mason stroke Brandon's arm, flashing a familiar lion-taming whip. Brandon's shoulders softened, swayed again by manipulative spells I refused wasting strength trying to combat directly. This triangle held no victory for interloping female voices of reason. The duo's dysfunctional bonds clearly remained Brandon's sole priority, relishing even hostile attention. With that revelation, I gently squeezed his shoulder before grabbing my jacket and dignity to leave the unhealthy spectacle conspicuously displaying behind me on the love seat. Some fires raged too hot, facing straight on without getting scorched by backdrafts. I messaged gentle sympathies to Brandon later about needing courage confronting harmful patterns undermining self-worth. But swiping left permanently against irresistible toxicity took precedence, knowing neither evening's revelations brought me closer to manifesting reciprocally supportive partnership in my life. Unearthing the roots of others' suffering too often invites merely more chaos unless they first commit nurturing internal growth bearing sweeter fruits. I can only open outwardly once inner fields bloom freely, roots strengthening independent of external validation. So I bid my fallen starling luck, escaping still icy shadows haunting his flight, yet pray no permanent chill sets without sunlight's forgiving warmth.
Thanks for listening in. If you like these stories and want to hear more, then please subscribe and like and support this new channel. We have more stories for you to listen to.